Hey everybody, welcome to Road to Becoming a Programmer, where we take you, the viewer, and make you a full-on programmer. Now, in today's video, we're gonna be going over these 12 exercises that we have right here, and the link for this will be in the description below. The link for this site right here. But basically, the reason I've chosen these particular exercises is that they covered every single thing that we learned in our previous video, right? But there's two things that you should pay attention to right now when you're looking at this. There aren't any borders around our data cells or table data. Right, so there isn't any border around ATH or English or Richard. So if you haven't watched that, make sure to go ahead and watch that one. The link for that also will be available in the description below. But yeah, we're gonna be using this to actually understand, not just learn them. We learned them in our previous video, but we're gonna be using these exercises to actually understand everything that we've learned in our previous video and get a good firm understanding of them. And yeah, with that said, let's get into the video. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you learned something important and worthwhile. And yeah, also make sure to leave a like down. Make sure to like the video, comment down below, and subscribe. Comment about any troubles, any suggestions, anything you want to comment about. Okay, so here we are with the very first example, or I guess it's the exercise, and it's a very basic, table. It has some table data inside of it, but there's two things that you should pay attention to right now when you're looking at this. There aren't any borders around our data cells or table data. Right, so there isn't any border around ATH or English or Richard or anything like that. So you want just one. What I'm guessing is 1 pixel solid black border around your table, and then you want some padding. Now, if you pay attention, there isn't any padding for top or padding for left or padding for bottom. There is just padding for right. So you want to add paddings to your table data, but another thing to note is that your very last table data column has more padding than the previous one. So you want to make sure that your last TD in every row gets extra padding on right. So with that said, go ahead and make this table and come back to the video. Okay, so first of all, what you want to do is make an actual table structure. We do that with using table head and table body. And then inside of our table body, we have TRs, our table rows, and table data. And instead of our T head, we have TH, and then our table row and then table data. And we pretty much took all the data from our table, the exercise table right here, and just put them inside of our own code. And once we do that, we move on to our styling or CSS. And so here's the two things you want to focus on. First of all is the border. We added the border around our table, as you can see right here. Yeah, we added the border around our table, and then we added some margin so that it doesn't actually stick to the very corner of the table, corner of the web page. So if we remove that and run it again, it goes like that, which it looks kind of weird. So let's just undo that and save it and run it again, and it looks a bit much better now. So then we have our TD and this one right here. So first of all, let's talk about this line of code. We said TD, so for every table data is going to have this styling. We said TD padding right 15 pixels. Sorry, 15 pixels. So all of our table data are going to have 15 pixel padding to the right side. So we can see right here that their left doesn't have any padding, no padding on top, no padding on bottom, but just the right side of our table or every cell or every table data is going to have 15 pixels of padding. But our last table data column has more padding than the other ones. How do we do that? We do it by using this line of code. TD last type of. So this basically says that every last table data, which means this column right here, is going to have this styling. Now, what is this styling? Padding right 50 pixels. So instead of the usual 15 pixels, it has 50 pixels. And you might be saying, well, since we said 50 pixels right here and we said 15 pixels right here, shouldn't these two add up to each other? Well, no, that's not how CSS works. So if we say 15 pixels right here, and then we type, let's say TD, just do that. Do that exact same thing. Go padding right, and say like 30 pixels. Since this line of code comes after the previous one, it's just going to overwrite that. So if we run our page, now there's more space. Now if you just remove this and change their spot, let's say cut this, put it over here. and save it, run the page again, it go back to its original one. Like it just ignores this part because this one overwrites it. So yeah, that's how you make the answer to the very first exercise. Okay, so for our second exercise, basically all we do is just add a caption to our table. Now, here's the thing: you can do this on your own, and it's super easy. So I don't want to, waste too much time on this exercise. So we're just going to move on to the next one. But you just basically add a caption to the previous exercise or previous table. As we can see, the actual table data is the exact same. It hasn't changed. Just add a caption to it. That's it. Then we start adding borders, and we're going to be doing this one. So go ahead and pause the video and try to do this, and come back to the video after you're done writing your code. Okay, so the third exercise, we basically don't change anything in the actual HTML and just move straight to our styling, our CSS. So here's the thing, we're gonna remove our border that we had in here. Previously, we had a border in our table. We're just gonna remove that, and we're just gonna add a border collapse right here. Now here's the thing, why do we have a border collapse right here but not a border? Well, we want to add borders to our individual cells, so it looks like this, right? If you actually add borders here, let's just add a border so I can show you what I'm talking about. Solid black, save that, run it again. We get this because there's a border around our table now. But if we just remove this, it looks like the actual table that the exercise wants us to make, right? But we can still add, that doesn't really matter because we can still add border collapse so that each individual cell sticks next to each other like this. But if you remove that, for example, and save it and run it again, it goes, it looks terrible. So let's undo that, save, and yeah. So that's it for that part. Now we move on to TD or table data. So we showed this in our previous video, but basically we want to add borders around every individual cell, every individual table data like we have right here. So we do that by going border 1 pixel solid black. Of course, you don't have to make it like this. We just want to follow the exercise, so it looks like the actual exercise. I do recommend that you mess around with this stuff and make it look the way you want, so it doesn't look boring to you. So if that sort of thing helps you and stay motivated and stay focused, do that stuff. And then we have caption. Right, so in exercise 2, we were supposed to add caption to our code and then to our table. And in the third exercise, we were supposed to have a border around our caption. So we do that by going border left, right, top. And you might be saying, why the hell are we doing this? Why don't we just go, let's say just border 1 pixel solid black? Why don't we just do this? Remove all this stuff. Right? Well, because if you do that, we get this. We get all of this. If you notice that there's a line underneath our caption, but if you just do it like I showed you right here, we want to have the border line at left, right, and top, but we don't want to have any line whatsoever beneath our or on the bottom of our caption. So if we just save this and run it again, we get this. Okay, so for our fourth exercise, we're gonna be doing some coloring. We're gonna change the color of the background for our caption and then change the color of the actual text for our caption. But more importantly, we're gonna change the color for our rows. This is what we want to pay attention to. This is the main focus of this exercise right here. Now here's the thing, if you watch my previous video, I already showed you how to change the color of rows, how to change it where your even rows have a different color than your odd rows. So that's why we're gonna skip exercise number 4 and move on to number 5. And here's the thing, number 5 is a bit different because it looks like the previous exercise, but there's one big difference. This time we're supposed to color our the columns, right? So let's jump into the code and see how we can, instead of coloring our rows different, we can color our columns different. Okay, so for exercise 5, we're just gonna do 3 basic things. We're gonna change or I guess I should 4. We're gonna change the color of our caption and the background color for our caption. So that's 2 things. We're gonna change it to where our columns have different colors, and that's it. Anyways, let's get into it. So first of all, the color for caption, just go color white. That's pretty much it. To change the actual text color of inside the caption. And then for background color, just I have this right here. You can just copy and paste it. Of course, it doesn't look the exact same color as you see in the on the website, but you know, who cares? It's mostly about learning how to color, not, you know, what's the exact color. Okay, now how do we select, you know, how do we select our rows? You know, I talked in my previous video about how you can choose, you know, your rows that you want to be colored in different ways. But how do we select the your rows that we want to color select in different ways? But how do we select our columns to be colored in different ways? So here's the code for it. First of all, we say tr, so you know, for the rows that have a td inside of them, right? So you know, pretty much all of our tds are inside a row anyway. So what we say, you know, all the table data or the tds that are inside of a row, and then we use this to say all the odd ones, all the odd number table data that are inside the table row. So for example, we go to our code, you know, we have this is the first one, our first table row. This is a table data that's inside of the table row, and it's we look at them and we give them different properties depending if they're odd or not, odd or even, right? So we give the odd ones a green, and then we give even ones, you know, a gray / kind of white color. So it looks something like this. Now the first one is odd, and then goes with even, odd, even, odd. Okay, so exercise 6 is super easy, so I'm just gonna leave this to you guys. But basically, have 3 rows, you know, have 3 TRs, and then have 3 TDs or table data inside of each row, and then make sure your second table data inside of your second table row has an extra border. So for example, you give borders to each single TD, and you go ahead and, you know, for example, let's say you give an ID or you give a class to your second table data inside of your second table row, and you know, you select that in your CSS, and then give it an extra border. For example, give it a, you know, border 3 pixel solid green, something like that. So you get this. And yeah, let's move on to our 7. So this is a much more challenging one, challenging table than the previous one. So go ahead and pause the video, try to do this one, and then come back and look at the results. Okay, guys. So for exercise number 7, these ones don't really have any styling going on, as you can see right here. This is mostly about teaching us how to use, you know, it's an exercise for us helping us understand how call span and row span works in HTML. So let's jump ahead. Let's go ahead and jump to the actual code for this one. So here's the thing. If you just look at this, you can see that obviously you want to add the, you want to, you know, this is the, I guess this is the, you want to put this in the first row in the th, and you want to make this bold, right? But you know, after that, you can see that, you know, it's just a normal row and with 2 TDs, 2 table data inside, 2 table data inside, 2 table data inside, and so on. But then it keeps going and it gets to this part, you know, for Ford we can see that this one's instead of taking up one space, you know, one cell, it's almost like it's free cell. It's almost like it's taking up the, you know, free cell spaces, right? And we can see that it's taking up free cell spaces in a row direction. You know, it's not in the column direction, it's in the row direction, right? So it's equal to 3 different rows, right? But so we can probably guess that we're gonna use row span 3 for this one, for this TD. And if you move to the actual code, yeah, right here, TD row span 3 for Ford. But here's where it gets interesting, guys. Pay attention to this part, right? So obviously, when you want to have something in front of it, you know, you put something, you know, TR, TD, and then another TD, right? But if we, you know, if we remove this, hold on, let me show you what I mean. If we remove this and save this and run it again, what happens is that you know, we make this part and this part, these 2 TDs in the same row, but you know, let's do the same thing for this one as well. Where is it? TR, am I doing it right? Yeah. Then another TR, and hopefully I'm not screwing this up. Yeah, okay, let's run this. Okay, so if you just do it with, you know, giving Ford or this TD row span of 3, all of these are gonna be laid out just like this, right? But if you actually put each one of these in individual rows, then what you saw in previously is gonna happen. Of course, you know, it's not much of a surprise since you've already seen it. But yeah, let's cut it, put it over here, and then do it again. Put over here. Okay, now let's run it again. So what happened, guys, is that we have these two items in the first row, right? These are both in the same row, but because this one has row span of 3, it looks like it's next to all 3 of these. But don't mistake it, guys. Only these two items are in the same row. But all this one is in the same row as these 3. Just these two are in the same row. And then after that, we move on to our next row, and then after that, we move on to another row, right? And then after that, we move on to our very last row where we have these two. So yeah. Okay, so for eighth exercise, it's gonna be kind of like the previous one. We're gonna be using a row span and col span to make a table like this. So go ahead and pause the video and come back and look at the results. Okay, so we can see right here that pretty much this entire part of the table is just like the previous one, and this last row is just like the previous one as well. But the main difference, also like the previous one, is that this row has changed. Now this time we can see that this table data, instead of this whole cell is taking up an entire 2 rows and 2 columns. Now, how do we know it's taking up 2 rows and 2 columns? Well, first of all, obviously, if you look at how much space each column is taking, each row is filled with 2 columns, 2 table data, and this one is taking up 2 columns. Again, pretty obvious. And but just by looking at the table data again, we can see that it's taking up 2 lines, 2 rows. So yeah, obviously we want to make changes to it so that this is given 2 the value of 2 for row span and the value of 2 for col span. And it's a bit more complicated than just that. So here's what it looks like. The actual code looks like row span 2 and col span 2 for this table data. But we also did something a little bit extra. So let's remove that and see what the table looks like with just these changes. And save it, run it again. Right, so this works like it should, but our next row, even though if we go back to look at the code, even though this row is over and then we move on to our next row, our code doesn't do that. Our web page doesn't do that. It's all in the same row. So how do we fix this? Well, here's how it works. You just add another tr, add another row, and just like that. Run it again. So what that does is that it makes it where it tells the website that this row, this is inside another row, right? So therefore it should be moved on to the next row. Whereas in previously, because of the way you use row span and col span, this entire row was just next to this table data or this row. So yeah, that's it. And again, these exercises aren't supposed to be easy. You're supposed to use your creativity and your brain to get them done. So if you having problem with this, don't worry. You're supposed to think. You're supposed to struggle. Okay, guys. So I'm just gonna leave the rest of these for you guys to solve, and I'm gonna be leaving a link in the description for this web page so you can have access to them for yourself. But I'm just gonna give some tips for solving these. So we're gonna start with the last one, I guess. As you can see, there is a border around every single row. So every single TR or table row should have a border around it, and there's a border, I guess, around the actual table as well. Then we go on to this one. This one, if you pay, you can make this happen by using border right. Border right allows you to put a border just on the right side of your table data or TD. So you can use border right as well as a border around your overall table to make this happen. This one doesn't look anything complicated or anything, pretty basic. Yeah, this one's a bit harder, but again, it's the hardest one were the 8th one and the 7th one. The rest of them aren't too hard. These are super easy. So yeah, go ahead and do this for yourself, and you can check the answer as well if you want to. If you have problem solving this, you just can't figure out how they work, you can just click on here, read more, and look at the actual answer for yourself. Okay guys, so thank you for watching today's video about tables in HTML. Make sure to subscribe. If you watched the video until now, you're probably enjoyed it and you learned something. So you might as well just subscribe, and you might as well leave a like, and you might as well leave a comment down below if you had any thoughts or anything you want to talk about. And I will answer all comments, so don't worry if it's gonna get lost in the comment section or anything like that. And yeah, also turn on notification, because YouTube doesn't really work like it should. So yeah, that would help out a lot as well. And yeah, that said, thank you for watching today's video, and I hope you enjoyed it.